Project 2025 would dismantle our environmental protections, unraveling decades of progress in the fight against climate change. It prioritizes corporate profits over public health, slashes critical regulations, and accelerates the destruction of our planet. We don't need to hype up how destructive Project 2025 is. It's all laid out in the plan. But we're going to break it down for you piece by piece because to defeat Project 2025, we must actively resist it. And at the end of this video, I'll give you specific steps to do just that. But first, head over to your favorite social media platform, search for Turn Left Pack, and subscribe. You've got to check out our latest Resist Project 2025 reels. And speaking of Project 2025, we're here on page 7 with Scott Simmons. Scott, with your background in environmental science and climate advocacy, I don't have to tell you how radical this is, do I?
No, John, I look at Project 2025 and it frightens me in so many ways. And with the work that I do around climate change, I think that climate is probably one of the top areas that really concern me. I mean, if we look at the earlier Trump term, rolled back, 100 regulations for, that were intended to protect air and water, Project 2025 represents a whole government unwinding of U.S. Climate policy. And this is right on the heels of the Chevron decision that was made possible by the nominations that President Trump made to the Supreme Court here a few years back during his term. The Chevron decision, which came out last year, 40-year-old doctrine, sounds amazingly like Roe versus Wade, ruled that judges should not give deference to federal agency interpretations of law. What does it mean? It means that effectively the teeth are being taken out of the EPA's ability to regulate pollution and regulate climate change. This has gone on for years. The advantage is now to businesses and Republican states. But as we look at Project 2025, a couple of things we're going to see. First is reversing the 2009 endangerment finding that classified carbon dioxide as a gas that needed to be regulated under the Clean Air Act. A complete rewrite, in fact, of the Clean Air Act, a reduction in EPA regulatory abilities made possible by the Chevron decision, dismantling key programs for public health and environmental justice, eliminating existing emission standards, replacing civil servants with politically aligned appointees, which we just saw with Scott Pruitt, during the Trump administration, being appointed to run the EPA, and probably one of the least environmentally friendly people that has occupied that role since its inception. No more NOAA, no more National Weather Service, FEMA being moved under the Department of Transportation. Excuse me? So you begin to look at this, and I think it's best summed up by one of the Trump allies, Bethany Kuzma, basically said, and she was part of USAID, that future appointees in a Trump administration or a Project 2025 administration will quote, will have to eradicate climate change references from absolutely everywhere. John, I'm scared. I'm just really scared.
Well, absolutely. We all should be. And it's all laid out here right on page 7. They are going after the Environmental Protection Agency, claiming that they strangle domestic energy production through difficult to understand rulemaking processes. Scott, you've got extensive experience in climate groups, and you highlight how Project 2025's proposal to update the 2009 endangerment finding would drastically weaken the EPA's ability to regulate greenhouse gases. Can you talk a little bit more about this dismantling of the EPA protections?
Yeah, John, I think much of this comes down to actually a bigger issue than even climate change. And obviously our focus is climate change, but this really strikes to sort of one of the key points of Project 2025, and that is no more government regulations. And to an extent, yeah, we do have a lot of regulations out there, but they're intended to safeguard society. By going ahead and effectively dismantling the Clean Air Act, among other regulations that are going to be swept underneath the carpet. What that's going to mean is we're going to have more early deaths, more premature births. You just go down the list. And the real tragic part of this, John, is that the folks that are going to be most affected are the disproportionately impacted communities that we have, especially here in the state of Colorado. I mean, all you have to do is go down to Commerce City and look at what Suncor has done to that area, or go out to Greeley and look at Bella Romero school, and the fact that these kids are breathing crap in every day. And that's under the existing regulations. Heaven knows what's going to be the result of this if Project 2025 comes to pass, and regulations are even taken a further step back. So yeah, the Clean Air Act is but one of the inceptive ingredients in this whole thing. Effectively, we're going to give we're going to give businesses a license to pollute our state, our country, our world.
Oh, absolutely. While these legislators should be focusing on saving our planet, bringing up the quality of life for its citizens, taking care of folks on disability, on Medicaid, our seniors, but instead they are focusing on legislation that will roll back every regulation and will put our clean drinking water supply and our food supply in peril.
Spot on, John. It's a scary, scary, scary way to look at the world.
It's dismantling environmental protections, gutting the EPA, and rolling back emission standards. This is one of the most aggressive attacks on our planet's future that we've ever seen. And we're going to break down more of this right after the break.
When I ran for Congress, we flipped more Trump voters blue than any other congressional race in the country. We did this by calling out the GOP's lies and speaking truth against their $1 million attack ads. I've now partnered with Turn Left, and we're taking the fight to the extremists like Marge the Trainwreck Green, Ted Cruz, and Josh Hawley, to name a few. And I'm asking each and every one of you all to donate $25 today to the group that is absolutely helping to send these jackaloons packing. It's time to speak truth to power and turn left.
Project 2025 plans to open more public lands to fossil fuel drilling, ignoring the environmental and public health impacts that come with increased carbon emissions. Scott, with your experience, could you give us a little bit more insight into Project 2025's focus on fossil fuel expansion, which threatens to undo progress in renewable energy and environmental health?
Yeah, John, and I think to start a discussion on this, I'll give you an anecdote. So a number of years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, I took my first trip to Alaska. I flew up to Anchorage, and I took the train out to Denali, out to what is known as Mount McKinley, whatever, to basically see the Alaskan wilderness. It's phenomenal. Once you leave, the proper area of Anchorage, it's all like wildlife and bears and elk and everything. And I mean, it's amazing. The beauty is just captivating. The biggest issue that I've got from a fossil fuel standpoint with Project 2025 is that there is a direct identification of opening up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to drilling. Basically, to be able to go ahead and to auction off some of the most pristine land in the world, some of the most pristine land to oil and gas companies to basically destroy. We've done this for too damn long, man. We've gone ahead and we've effectively crapped on our state, on our globe, and this, with Project 25, this is just going to be one more instance of it. And the fact that we're seeing this level of degradation of our environment under existing regulations today, boy, it's really scary when you start thinking about what the future might hold. Things like changes to conservation funds. There's a discussion in Project 2025 about abandoning all collaboration with the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, which is just absolutely ridiculous, because that is one of the groups that actually determines where land use policy should go. To reverse protection, decisions on places like the Thompson Divide that we have right here in Colorado. Boundary Waters in Minnesota, Ambler Road up in Alaska, 9 million acres of the Tongrass National Forest. All of these particular protected areas may in fact fall to this. The BLM land options in Alaska, the land orders, it's going to open up 28 million more acres of public land that have remained in conservation status since 1971. So, the bottom line is we're going to see these huge increases in oil and gas leasing. And then this goes hand in hand with what we just talked about earlier with regulations. So if we're allowing more of this to take place with less regulations going ahead and making sure that we're safeguarding the environment, this is a recipe for disaster. We're behind the 8 ball enough right now with this whole climate situation. All you have to do is take a look at COP28 this year and the soon to be COP29 that'll be happening in October. We can't afford to do more damage to this world. We really, really need to go ahead and step back and take a real hard look at it. And the way that Project 2025 looks at the utter exploitation of natural resources to basically fund short-term profits for oil and gas companies and automobile companies, and an economy that unfortunately subsidizes itself on fossil fuel. We need a better way to go about it. Project 2025 is a huge step backwards.
Absolutely. The overhaul of the EPA proposed by Project 2025 would streamline approvals for fossil fuel projects, sidelining renewable energy efforts and public input. Scott, there's been a lot of discussion in the media about being past the point, being at the tipping point, or beyond the point of no return in regard to climate. How will Project 2025 and all of these deregulations, and I know it's a very obvious question, but how will Project 2025 push us closer to the edge of an environmental Armageddon?
Well, I think it's going to be an acceleration of what we saw in Donald Trump's earlier administration. Basically, a walk back from both domestic as well as, more importantly, international agreements that we have in place. As I think everybody knows, one of Trump's first moves when he became president, back in the 2017 timeframe, was to basically walk away from the Paris Climate Accords. Scary in and of itself, partly because we're not even going to go ahead and be able to meet, even with current work that's being done in the climate, we're not going to meet the aims of the Paris Accord, almost certainly. The Project 2025 is actually going to take us back even a step further, because in addition to some of this regulatory issues and the fossil fuel issues, now we've got other things that we're going to see coming out of this. From a domestic policy standpoint, we're going to see a retreat from funding for clean energy and green energy solutions. We're going to see a defunding of renewable energy programs, such as the ones that we currently have in the Inflation Reduction Act to go ahead and provide for home and business electrification. We're going to see key programs dismantled here domestically in health and environmental justice. The IRA, even parts of the BIL, the bipartisan infrastructure law, these things are going to be rolled back. We're definitely going to once again withdraw from the Paris Accord. We're going to withdraw, according to the Project 2025, it wants us to actually as well withdraw from the UN framework for Convention on Climate Change, which was one of the first organizations put together to address climate change. In fact, we're going to turn our back on the world. We're going to basically tell the world, this is your job to go ahead and deliver this, even when we are, quite honestly, one of the worst offenders for climate change in the entire world. We like to point back at maybe India or China. Well, I tell you, China is screaming right now in terms of solar and geothermal. India is an issue because you have such a level of poverty. But that said, it is going to be the international community that goes ahead and makes the difference of climate change. One country can't do it alone, but I'll tell you, one country can actually torpedo this, and that's us. And if we don't do a better job of going ahead and shoring up international cooperation, other things in the Project 25, withdrawing from the World Bank. So, I mean, there's actually these huge issues that have a relevance to climate change, but in fact have a relevance to world peace, world order, economic order, etc. You're going to see an acceleration of trade wars, which is also going to have a dramatic feedback on what we're seeing going on in climate change. Why? Because we're going to continue to sell oil and gas and cars for cheap prices, only further accelerating the issues that we have with climate change. We're going to see global climate initiatives. Funding is going to basically be restricted from our government. And then lastly, as we kind of touched on in the earlier topic, we're going to see this huge increase in fossil fuel extraction by our companies, by the US companies, to go ahead and to continue to plunder the earth for this stuff. So if this happens, John, let me give you a couple of figures. And these are statistics I pulled out specifically to do this podcast. If Project 25 goes as successful right now, our planet heating emissions will increase by 2.7 billion tons above the current trajectory in 2030, excuse me. We will not meet our goal of cutting emissions in half by 2030. And in fact, we're going to miss it by a long distance. In addition, because of what we just talked about with the IRA and the BIL and green energy and renewable energy technologies, we're going to lose 1.7 million jobs. And we're actually going to see a hit of $320 billion to the U.S. gross domestic product because of rollbacks in the BIL and the IRA. So, the impact of Project 2025 across the board, as we look at, regulatory behavior, as we look at fossil fuel extraction, as we look at international cooperation, this is putting us on a road to death, to a road to absolute hell on this planet. I'm 67 years old. I'm not going to see it, but I guarantee my daughter is going to see it. And I guarantee my granddaughter, who's 6 years old, is going to experience the worst of it. And who knows if there'll even be kids after that. It is that bad, John. And Project 2025 only accelerates our march into death.
Absolutely. That is absolutely a frightening scenario, but it is a real scenario under Project 2025, and it is something that we must absolutely resist. Project 2025 isn't just about unleashing fossil fuels, it's about rolling back decades of progress in clean energy and climate resilience. But is it really conservative? That's what we're going to be taking a look at next.
Today, we have an amazing show for you. Join myself, special guests, and celebrities.
What's going on, Ice-T? Andrew Yang.
Somebody else was hopping on.
Oh, hold on.
What's going on, Battle?
As we roast GQP Jackaloons.
He may not be a real businessman, but he is one hell of a con artist. That's what it is. That's what they got indicted for. Treason and sedition.
And addresses the headlines of the day.
They must be held accountable.
Live streaming every night.
I got more time in a friggin' port in a friggin' combat zone than you've probably got in the military.
This is Ojeda Live.
By
Cool,
weakening, yeah, good stuff. By weakening the EPA's authority, the U.S. could lose its standing in global climate leadership, isolating itself from international efforts to combat climate change, just like we were talking about right before the break. Scott, could you tell us about how this climate policy highlights the long-term damage that could be inflicted on the U.S.'s ability to meet international climate commitments? I mean, we're just going to pull out of everything. We're going to be turning our back on the world, just like you said. What is that going to look like for the world?
Well, unfortunately, it's going to take us back, as I say, to the dark days of the Trump administration and how the world viewed us in terms of being a country against, dealing with climate change. It's going to put us in a position right now when we're finally beginning to make some progress. Once again, as I alluded to earlier, we're going to miss the targets of the Paris Accord. However, if Project 2025 goes in to pass, my feeling is, so Paris Accords say we need to keep the global average temperature to 1.5 degrees. Well, we've already kind of blown through that. So, the hope right now is that if we really get our act together, maybe we can keep it to 2 degrees and maybe we can begin to actually start shifting back and start going in a positive direction against this climate change. Project 2025, though, my feeling is, and I haven't seen anybody's opinion of this, if 2025 goes in and we have the long-lasting effects that you and I have been talking about on this call, John, I would actually not be surprised at all if by the 2050 or especially the 2100 timeframe, we're at 3 degrees over. And the funny thing is, we look at 3 degrees and go, oh shoot, it was 84 degrees yesterday, it's 87 today. That's not much of a change. Oh, the amount of change that's going to be brought with 3 degrees or even 2 degrees right now is just incredible. The temperature on this planet right now is hotter than it's been in hundreds of thousands of years. Okay. We get to 3 degrees, it will be the hottest it's been in millions and millions of years. It will, in fact, create inhabitable zones across the world, in India, in the sub-Saharan, etc. So by turning our back on the rest of the world, John, through the wonders of Project 2025, in addition to the fact that we're consigning our population to what amounts to a hellish future, the worst thing is we're doing it to people we don't even know. We're doing it to countries that never even had a hand in creating this completely messed up issue. And so, yeah, as we begin to look at those international commitments, it scares the crap out of me, John, that right now we're going to turn our back on an effort that actually we help to go ahead and drive. And at that point, it's going to be up, hopefully to the Chinas of the world and maybe the Indias of the world to pull us out. It takes a village to go ahead and solve this problem. Climate change is such a complicated problem because it's more than fossil fuels, and it's fossil fuels, it's deforestation, it's absolute pollution, it's consumerism. I mean, you go down the list. It is such a much bigger issue than just climate, and we're killing our planet, man. And the one thing we need to do is we need to move forward. Project 2025 is a huge step backwards, and it's going to be a step backwards that's going to, as I say, impose a hellish future on every single citizen of this globe.
You're absolutely right. We must do everything that we can in our power to resist and stop Project 2025. Scott, that is an absolutely scary vision for our future, but it is a reality if Project 2025 takes hold. Thank you for joining us. We said at the beginning that to defeat Project 2025, we must resist Project 2025. Here's how you can take action today. Visit turnleftpack.org and sign up for our emails. You can request a template letter to send to your representatives in Congress, telling them that you won't support anyone who backs these dangerous policies. Project 2025 dismantles decades of progress, rolls back critical environmental protections, and puts our planet on a path to climate catastrophe, all to serve the interest of fossil fuel giants. Project 2025 isn't just attacking environmental regulations, it's attacking our future. And we're here to make sure that doesn't happen. Share this video, tag someone who needs to hear the truth, like and subscribe, and stay tuned next for Ojeda Live.